Today we about to read Flat Stanley and their very big cookie. Here it goes. The author is Jeff Brown. The pictures by Mackie Permit. Stanley Leopard lived with his mother and his father and his little brother Arthur. Stanley was 4 feet tall, about foot wide, and half an inch thick. He had been flat ever since a Billington boar fell on him. Here it goes. See? He's flat right here. People in Stanley's town like having a flat boy around, especially since Stanley was always willing to lend a hand, or even a whole arm. He helped the librarian reach books that slipped under the stacks. He helped the dentist smooth out the new wallpaper in his office. And when the bakery was busy, Stanley helped him frost cakes 2 at a time. But one day, Stanley and Arthur went to Pete's store and found the bakery wasn't busy at all. The bakery wasn't busy. "What's wrong?" asked Stanley. "It's the baker in the next town," said Pete. "He's taking away all my business." "But how?" Stanley asked. "What does he have that you don't?" "2 words," Pete said. "Cake pops." "Oh, cake pops, yummy," said Arthur. Stanley elbowed his brother. "What?" Arthur said. "They are, it's true," said Pete glumly. "They are yummy, so why don't you bake them too?" suggested Stanley. You got to cake pops. They look yummy to me too. "I never copy another bakery," said Pete. "I'm the one with the big idea, the big ideas, the tart trend. I started the cupcake craze." "Me again?" Then Pete held up a flyer. "This is my chance to get back my customers," said Pete. "I have to think of a next big idea by Saturday." He flew his hands up in the air. A cloud of flour flew up. "If I don't, my bakery is doomed." That night, Stanley and Arthur tried to think of an idea for Pete. Mini muffins, bite-sized. Everything had been done before. "How about a nice coconut macaroon?" suggested Mr. Lopez. The boys didn't know what a macaroon was, but it didn't sound like anything that could be a cake pop. The next day was Friday. Stanley and Arthur stopped by the bakery after school. It was a mess. There was frosting everywhere, and Ho's table was covered with cookie dough. Candy balls rolled around on the floor. Mr. Pete called Stanley. "What's going on?" "Whoa!" Stanley slipped on a candy ball. His flat arms made a windmill as he tried not to fall. Pete came out of the kitchen just in time to see Stanley land smack face first in the cookie dough. See when I on the floor. Arthur peeled his brother off the dough. There was a Stanley shaped dent in it. "I'm so sorry, Pete," said Stanley, but Pete was staring at the dent with a strange smile on it. "The next big idea," he said, "is big." Pete started racing around the bakery. The boys didn't know exactly what his plan was, but they pitched in. Stanley and Arthur helped mix a giant batch of cookie dough. They rolled it out on the table. Then Pete pulled up a chair. Stanley, will you climb up here and fall on the dough again? Okay, said Stanley. But does it have to be face first? This time, Pete grinned, shook his head, yes. Stanley got up on the chair. He took a deep breath and fell backwards. Perfect, said Stanley. Arthur pulled away the extra dough. Pete and Arthur pulled and pulled, then they helped Stanley stand up. On the table lay a gingerbread boy. It was 4 feet tall, about a foot wide, and half an inch thick. Just like you, Arthur told Stanley, only good looking. The cookie looked even better when it was baked in the custard. Wow, said Stanley. This might sound weird, but I want to take a bite of my head. Not now, said Pete. We have 3 dozens kid-sized cookies to make. The next morning was the food fair. The Lampins walked down Main Street. Look at that, said Mr. Lambatchuk. There was a huge crowd outside Pete's Sweets. They were waiting to buy kid-sized cookies. See, here go the cookies right here. Gingerbread boys and girls. But there were 2 cookies that weren't for sale. These are for you, said Pete. Thanks for saving the day. I always knew I had the sweetest boys in the world, said Lumpachop. The boys grinned. See? Look. Here's Stanley and here's Arthur. And took a bite. The end.